The mining of minerals in Nigeria accounts for only about 0.3% of its gross domestic product due to the influence of its vast oil resources. The domestic mining industry is underdeveloped, leading to Nigeria having to import minerals that it could produce domestically, such as salt or iron ore. The rights to ownership of mineral resources is held by the federal government of Nigeria, which grants titles to organizations to explore, mine, and sell mineral resources. Organized mining began in 1903 when the Mineral Survey of the Northern Protectorates was created by the British colonial government. A year later, the Mineral Survey of the Southern Protectorates was founded. By the 1940s, Nigeria was a major producer of tin, columbite, and coal. The discovery of oil in 1956 affected the mineral extraction industries as the federal government began to focus on this new resource. Then, the Nigerian Civil War in the late 1960s led to many expatriates, that is mining experts, to leave the country. Before the Civil War, between 1967 and 1970, there was an active mining sector in Nigeria, and the country was a significant exporter of certain mined minerals, including coal and tin. Mining regulation was then handled by the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, who were tasked with the responsibility of overseeing the management of all mineral resources in Nigeria. Nigeria's mining law is codified in the Federal Minerals and Mining Act of 1999. Historically, Nigeria's mining industry was monopolized by state-owned public corporations. This led to a decline in productivity in almost all mineral industries. Nigeria passed the 2007 law deregulating the mining of solid minerals in a bid to attract much-needed private investment to develop the underperforming and neglected sector. Today on Policy Focus, we will be looking at Nigeria's mining sector. Where are we? I am Lydia Odijochi. Welcome. You are on to Policy Focus, and our topic is Nigeria's policy on mining. Before we go on, here is our news update. How important is strategy, policy, and leadership to an organization or business? This was the question posed to participants of the Policy, Strategy, and Leadership Course 48 at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies in a lecture series titled Understanding Strategy. The resource person, Brigadier General Sylvester Oloyede, a directing staff of the Institute, enlightened the participants on the nexus between policy, strategy, and leadership.
A strategy can be evaluated using the following criteria. 1. Sustainability. This is based on the attainment of the objective. Feasibility, based on availability of means. And acceptability, which is based on opportunity cost by stakeholders.
It was an interactive session where questions were asked and answers proffered. Participants were made to understand aims and objectives of strategy towards realizing business and organizational goals. In appreciating the nature of strategy, participants were informed about the tripod on which strategy rests. They are and ways and means to achieving balance and stability.
Ways explain how the ends are to be accomplished by the employment of resources. You use ways, methods, how to achieve the end state. Ways plus what? Means.
Participants speak on their takeaways.
I have learned to define my ends, my means, and the way to achieve it. Set my goals and determine how am I going to take the steps towards realizing those goals. By understanding my baseline, where I'm intending going, and the actions in between.
I learn how to work with strategy and work with theme, and I learn how to put policy on ground that will be valuable and supportive to the people that I'm dealing with or the context that I'm dealing with.
On national strategy to tackle insecurity, it was recommended that the factors of national power like population, human capital development be harnessed to defeat insecurity through drivers like ministries, departments, and agencies. Lydia Odidiochi for NIPSS Policy TV. Thank you for staying. The Federal Executive Council in 2016 approved a roadmap for the growth and development of the nation's mining sector and the renaming of the Federal Ministry of Solid Minerals as Federal Ministry of Mines and Steel Development. The roadmap 2016 was built on the old roadmap 2012 to grow the contribution of mining to the gross domestic product, GDP, in line with the federal government's determination to further diversify the nation's economy. Now, Nigeria's new Minister of Solid Minerals, Henry Oladele Alake, unveiled his new agenda for the transformation of Nigeria's mining sector in September 2023. He left no Nigerian in doubt about his passion, preparedness, and the possibilities to make things work in a way Nigerians have never experienced in one of the country's most promising but acutely underperforming sector of the economy. But the minister said under his leadership, the mining sector will be primed to add at least 50% to the Nigerian economy. This is quite ambitious, to say the least, and many Nigerians are already positing that the target is outrightly unattainable. Still, others say it is not outrightly impossible, given the abundant mineral resources Nigeria is blessed with, still left untapped. Our guest today is a development economist, national strategy consultant to the World Bank on Nigeria. He conducted studies for the United States Embassy in Nigeria, Canadian International Development Association, CIDA, governments of Benue, Zamfara, and the then Federal Ministry of Solid Minerals on Ajaokuta steel mining. He was a member of the Vision 2020, the 30-year Infrastructure Master Plan, and the Midterm Development Framework 2021 to 2025 and 2026 to 2030. Let me welcome Dr. Emeka Okengo. He is joining us via Zoom in Abuja. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Emeka Okengo.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. The Minister of Solid Minerals, Dele Alake, said under his leadership, his ministry will be primed to add at least 50% to the Nigerian economy. Some would say this is quite ambitious, to say the least. How would you react to this?
Well, ambitious will be a fair way to describe it. Impossible, speaks more to the reality if you're going to be juxtaposing it against, the facts on ground. First, even in our best days of mining, we never got past, 12% contribution to GDP, and this was when we had, all the right paraphernalia, all the right infrastructure, all the right back end facilities. And this is us who've sold practically everything, liquidated some, abandoned some, the little or no back end facilities to even support what it is that we have ongoing. and then we're talking about 50%, and 50% from 0.3 or 0.35 or 0.5 that's been the best that we've gotten in over 3 decades. It's a tough call. It's actually an impossible feat if you want me to be real, and I can tell you why.
Okay. All right. Now, what is being done about an independent regulatory agency for the mining industry has been advocated, but that is for the operators in the mining sector?
Well, remember that the ministry itself, by its new covenants, it's supposed to be a regulatory agency. So every department of the ministry, technically, is supposed to be, oversighting and superintending standards. So the primary work of the ministry is oversight and regulation. Okay, I don't think there's any need for us to have any particular agency, poised. All you need to do is to strengthen every department and unit under the ministry, and then everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's what the law says. The law says that they have the primary responsibility, of regulation and administration. Under administration, they look at policy development. Under regulation, they look at oversight. So the whole ministry, as it were, from the office of the minister, to the last department there, actually has some core regulation, as it's called. So I don't think, creating a new independent agency to do what the law says the ministry, will be doing, that would be an overkill.
Okay. Now, what distinguishes this roadmap, that is the one for 2016, which builds on the old roadmap that was approved by the council in 2012?
But against the roadmap is first and foremost what the legal governance assigned to you as roles. So if you do not juxtapose your primary role, or your primary against your roadmap against your primary role, and in this case, whatever roadmap you've seen, taking the industry to ABCD, taking it to XYZ, has to be against that primary responsibility, allocated to you by law. And in this instance, the 2007 Mining Act, simply, says that the role of the ministry is to be able to, superintend those standards that can be able to make the private sector, lead the charge in the development of the Nigerian mineral resources sector. So it is a purely, strictly, wholly private sector endeavor, that is supposed to be supported, by, now, like I keep saying to you, regulation and legal components. So anything outside, making the private sector the focal point or making the private sector the driver, of that roadmap would negate the expectations and demands of the law. So having said that, yes, the roadmap, captures succinctly what any country would expect to get from their mineral resources, remembering that if you manage your mineral resources well, the NIPSS documents, the CIS documents, the Vision 2020, the Vision 2010 even, and every other technical review that we've done on new economic mining sector as a very veritable pathway of economic diversification. So roadmaps that we be able to, drive on those deliveries will be welcome. But I think where you have the challenge with the roadmap is not first and foremost pigeonholing it against understanding, okay, that the private sector has to be in charge of leading, that trip.
Okay. Now, how would you react to partnership between the federal and state governments on solid minerals?
There's really no partnership, as in the word partnership. But I think there's a relationship or there are roles, if you may. The federal government, like mining is in the exclusive list. So mining is exclusive, preserve of the federal government, just like oil is. But in trying to get the state government involved, the law also captures what they call the community development agreements or host community agreements, where host communities, can play a role or what that role will be, how can they benefit, from the mineral exploration, exploitation or beneficiation or value-added processes from their localities. That's to the extent that the states, are permitted by law to play, if you may. But with the new regime and new social inclusion that government is trying to promote, the ministry seems to be reaching out, to the state government. But again, remember that even before they started, doing this reaching out, a lot of states have started, issuing executive orders, stopping mining operations, taxing mining operators, even arresting people who they said were illegitimate or illegal miners, from their states. And there is no law in Nigeria that permits for that to happen.
All right. Now, what were those contending issues between the Federal Ministry of Solid Minerals and state ministries for solid minerals?
It's just simple. Who has the right to oversight and issue licenses? That's what it simply is. The no state mineral ministry can issue any license or should issue any license, as it were. They should also, superintend exclusively. In fact, they're supposed to be doing that using what they call the Mirenko. All right, the Mirenko is supposed again to be, under the direct supervision of the minister. So the states does not, in that law, as it is now, have any exclusivity over what they can do, with their mineral resources.
All right. Now, mining is very power intensive, and so the reliability of power supply is not insurmountable. Now, how can we as a country overcome this potential hurdle?
Mining is very power intensive, like you said, yes. But you also find out that mining also becomes one of those areas that you can use in actually, reducing the load on the people who offtake your power, okay, vis-a-vis what we call the base load cost of power, because of the intensity and the volume that is required. Now, we have a lot of power sources in Nigeria. We have a lot of hydros that has not been explored. We have a lot that we can be able to do, to make certain that we can get alternate sources of power. We have also, other sources of power. We have a lot of, like I said to you, gas resources we have that were flaring, that we're not using. So it's all about how best we can be able to harness this. However, in also mentioning all these power sources, a lot of them might also not be adequate because of, the heaviness of the kind of mining equipment that needs this power. Okay, a lot of these mining equipment are power intensive, voltage intensive, and a lot of those turbines, might not be turned easily by maybe wind or alternative energies. So we would need to, look at our thermal. The country has a lot of, potentials for thermal energy. So we can also look at the potentials of using, our seas to be able to generate this energy, considering and knowing that no matter how expensive it is, it can actually be borne, creditably by the mining sector.
Now, with ongoing concerns surrounding security, especially areas with mineral deposits and where mining is ongoing, how detrimental is this to large-scale new investment in the mining sector?
Well, environmental degradation, unfortunately, is all part of the incidences, that come with mining. But there are new mining practices now. There are safer mining practices or safer mining methods, that actually now begins to lead to the new theory that where mining stops is where agriculture begins. So it's not all that dirty, that this is why you find out that there's a lot of, impact assessment studies, that are being carried out, and a lot of these things are a lot of mine development plans and mine closure plans also in place. So there's a lot that is going on. I mean, the new techniques are making it easy and possible for people to actually, do things that are safer and do it in a more creditable way. So yes, there's no way you cannot, look at that environmental degradation, more so when you're not doing it the right way. I mean, it gets worse when you're not using, the right methods. And this is where you get when you have, unsafe pedestrian, artisanal, mining practices. But if I global scale, usually they're well done.
Okay. Now, but I would like you to comment on the way mining is done in Nigeria. Are we up to what's been done globally?
We're not doing mining in Nigeria, unfortunately, or we haven't started doing, or we stopped doing mining in Nigeria. Because when you talked about Nigeria being power intensive, it simply means it is also machinery intensive. Okay, so mining is technology intensive. And way back in those days where we had gotten to that point where we were doing 12%, contribution to GDP, which was between, I think, the early 60s up to 1974, 75, you had a lot of machinery, being introduced. And this was against, very widespread, deep, extensive exploration programs for in-situ determination. But right now, you find out that with the exit of the major mining companies resulting from a lot of factors, two will come to mind. One was the Indigenization Decree of 1975 that I think, in my opinion, was not properly thought through. Second was, a lot of policies, policy inconsistencies, and then a lot of red tapeism and government overhang. So what you now have, what we call mining, is actually, scavenging, if you may, and this is where the degradation is a lot more difficult, and a lot more complex. Okay, and then the remediation is even, much more. It presents more challenges than, because no culture is put into it, no plans are put into it, no mine plan is ever developed, no environmental impact assessment is ever carried out. So it's a lot of mess, as it were.
Okay. Now let's go to another level of this discussion. What are the proposed changes to Nigeria Minerals and Mining Act, NMMA?
Everybody is taking it from the position of a white elephant. I mean, there's a school of thought that thinks Nigeria should establish a mineral development company. Another school of thought is of the feeling that the existing some aspects of the law, like the environmental compliance, should be looked at. Some other people are looking at it from rejigging the SNDF, so that it can become, more functional. But like I said, what's most important is for us to understand when you fixate it where it's supposed to be, strictly as a private sector driven, endeavor. Now, against very strong, legal regimes that will protect that investment, because mining takes a very long time, takes up to 5 years to be able to, take it from exploration to even getting your mine to start producing. So it takes it requires a very long gestation period. This is the point I'm trying to make. So whatever laws you have, whichever way they're taking it from, for me, as a person, I do not think we need a mining corporation now. We have had one that is still in existence. I don't think they have been properly liquidated, but a lot of their assets have been sold. I wouldn't know if that was done legally. I wouldn't know all those laws that we are trying to. Let me also say I'm fixated on what is happening, but what we have already, was a lot of work. It took more than 3 years, intensive, negotiations, intensive inputs, intensive reviews, funded by the World Bank to have what it is we have as the 2007 Mining Act. There might be one or two places that be needing, some kind of firming up, as it were. But I think in all, that law could suffice for now. Because like I said, it's not about government, taking the lead. It's about the private sector being the ones, to define and determine how it goes.
Okay, Dr. Okego, why is illegal mining a problem?
Okay, it's become a pandemic, not even an epidemic. Okay, because between those who live in the real sector, okay, that's why you say it's when it's farming season, they turn into farmers. when it's off season, they go into mining. Now, but at one time, in that review, in that mining review, like I was telling you, it was now found that I mean, there's no way you can stop them. It was close to impossible for anybody to want to stop, illegal mining as it were. So what they decided to do was to call them artisanal miners, okay, and created a department to be able to now see how they could aggregate them into cooperatives. All right, that was how, at one time government, felt that they could deal with the problem, and it worked for me to a very large extent because in no little time, over 250 or 2,500 of such people were aggregated into cooperatives, okay, that were registered with the ministry, and then they were being. But I think along the line, the funding from the World Bank that was supposed to be supporting it, ended or got into another stage, and I don't know, it stops. But I can tell you for free, even if you brought the whole army in the whole world, you won't be able to stop illegal mining. It's never been stopped anywhere, and Nigeria won't be any different.
Okay. Now, what are the effects of unregulated mining?
The environmental degradation, that's the primary one. A lot of deaths, because a lot of people do not know that there are more mines collapsing or pits collapsing. It's simple geography will tell you that just like you have foundations, you have rocks or cornerstones, you also have that under the soil. You touch that sand or cornerstone, the whole place caves in, and it's very rampant. You have a lot of loss of revenue. Okay, like one of the 90 reports are reported that over a 10-year period, the country had lost close to $8 billion in the black marketing or illicit trading of gold, from Nigeria. And then you're not just talking about gold, there are also much more precious mineral as much precious minerals, that are bound in the country that are also being, illegally marketed and exported. So it's an A to Z disaster situation. Okay, take it from the human angle, take it from nature, take it from health, take it from criminality, take it from a lot of drugs, a lot of prostitution. There was one study that showed that they had gone to do some mapping of people who work in a mine site and found out that more than 3/4 of them were infected by HIV and AIDS and other very dangerous diseases. So that's how it goes. It's disaster, disaster unlimited, if you may.
Like you earlier said that illegal mining cannot be stopped, but what do you think are those significant steps that the government can take to reduce it to the barest minimum?
Cooperatives. The moment you can be able to turn them into commercial cooperatives, you stand a chance of aggregating them, okay, which was what government had started doing. I don't know why they stopped. Okay, the moment you are able to recognize them, it becomes a lot easier, for them to be more forthcoming with information. And remembering that a lot of these guys are actually pathfinders. So if you identify them as being critical, to that, mining chain, okay, and so treat them, it becomes a lot easier to deal with them. But the moment you call them illegal and you criminalize them, they go on the ground. They are very far away in the bush. It takes you hours of very rough roads to be able to get to where they are. So you give them hours of notice. They're able to either run away or plan attacks on you or whatever it is. So it won't work. I don't see cohesion being the solution to solving the problems of illegal mining. I think it is best, to be able to engage them, and then see how best, they can fit into the programs of settlement mining in Nigeria.
Yeah, Doctor, you talk about cooperatives. What about some of these illegal miners or artisanal miners who are foreigners?
That's what I'm saying now. You see, the foreigners are probably in that trading chain. Okay, they come at the point where they buy from the locals or they fund the locals to produce for them. So the moment you are interacting with the locals, you have what you can call some grounded control of what's going on. If you're able to say to the people who are producing, okay, fine, let's know who you are. Let's be able to guide you, okay, with technology, guide you with information, guide you with technical assistance, even guide you with markets. At one time, remember that the government even established, some mineral buying centers. This was all to, try to, engage people who were what you can call who are ungoverned, who are not captured into the structure of the sector. Now they help you. And then that way, through them, you can also actually know who these foreigners are, where they're coming from, who is funding them, where they're taking the minerals to, when they come to take it, really. So it helps you, starting from that very lower point, so starting from that beginning point, helps you to begin to now, even fight the middleman or whoever it is that is encouraging them to produce for them, illegally.
Okay. Now, what in your opinion would be a game changer for attracting investment and driving resources avenues?
Well, first, like I said, this illegal miners is becoming a pandemic. It's something that government must deal with. You must be able to give them some impression that you want to work with them so that you can make the bushes safe. Okay. Two is that you need to encourage the private sector. There are junior mining companies that have the primary role of exploration. Okay, you need to. It's not for government, because I keep saying that anytime you see government supporting exploration programs, no investor will invest against any government data without going to now do what they call confirmatory drills. So it is better that for every drilling campaign you want to start, try to find, the people that has interest in it, and then let them be part of whatever it is you're doing, so that study is not done twice. And then there are sector-specific, competent persons, that must be part of a campaign before serious mining companies or serious investors would want to look at your reports. That's what they call the competent persons report. And those competent persons, against every campaign they carry out, people can actually put in their money. So if you don't understand how this runs, and then you're getting people to just go and do exploration studies, and then you try to get them into the market, you're just going to be coming back to do the same things again. So first deal with these illegal miners, so-called. They believe that these resources are given to them by God, and indeed it is, because a lot of them, actually operate within their own territories. And then you find strangers, they don't know, coming with police and military and whoever to come and drive them out of the land. Yes, I mean, that's what the law says. But if you're trying to say that want to build social cohesion, you must make them part of that chain.
Okay, finally, moving forward as a country, what would be your recommendations for our mining sector to thrive?
The first recommendation will be for us to be able to place the Ministry of Mines or Ministry of Solid Minerals Development squarely and restrict them to what the law says, for them to regulate and oversight the sector, and equip every member of staff, from minister to the last person there, to play that role. Two will be to support the Solid Minerals Development Fund, okay, to be able to do what the law says it should do, generate, generate data that can be able to now start driving investment interests, and then help, to train the human capital required for us as a country to be able to, play in the mining sector. And three, help to be able to identify, the infrastructure you need, or mines land infrastructure you need to be able to make the place, attractive. Now, if you've done that, then it becomes a lot easier for you to begin to now look for investors who, as a first step, will come into, against that your first find, okay, begin to now take it a little deeper. And this is where you now, have what we call your junior mining companies. And they're all over the world. Mining companies that have maybe have capital outlays of $250 million, or between 250 million to 500 million, which internationally is seen as, very small mining companies. Now, when they finish, they now become the partners or pathfinders to these very major, big mining companies that can now begin to, make us a mining destination if by the grace of God we find anything big.
Thank you, Dr. Emeka Okengu. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us and educating us on the mining sector. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you. Pleasure.
All right.
Pleasure.
Have a wonderful day.
It's new, it's fresh. It's all about policies and strategies. Watch out for NIPSS Policy TV programs on NTA News 24. Tune in on Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on DSTV channel 419, GoTV channel 26, Star Times channels 101 and 433, and Free TV channel 703. Miss this and miss out on policies that will affect you and our country. Join us.
In my little knowledge, I believe mining right from the inception is being controlled by legal bodies. Because I personally have this belief that nobody can just come and begin to mine resources. I think if the government will put their attention on the rural leaders where these mining activities is rightly going on, or in those areas that the mining activities is rightly taking place, the curtailing of illegal mining will have a point to be stated. Yes.
All right. Like the Minister of Mining said that he's aiming at improving the country's GDP by 50%. Do you think this is achievable?
It's achievable because possibility is always to people who have the strength and vision. If they will put all policies in place and check them regularly, I think it is attainable.
Well, I think Nigeria, like I've said earlier, Nigeria is a blessed country, blessed with so many natural resources, and I think Nigeria, we thank God that we are blessed with oil. There are other natural resources that God has blessed us with, but I think what government need to do on mineral resources is to make sure that it is well organized. I mean, government should make sure they check all these traditional rulers that join hands with people, to illegally miners that came in from foreign countries and then try to get what they want at the expense of the community that God has blessed them with this. I think they need to work together to make sure that whatever that is taken out, make sure that something is coming back, at least to help the community, to make sure there is good water, good roads, and schools where people can get quality educations and so on and so forth.
It's okay. First, what I have to say is, you see, mining issues is a very big issue and it's a very big case. And secondly, it's a very good source of revenue if you look at what is going on, because the insecurity that is even going on right now in the country, most especially maybe places like Zamfara, and they all have all these mineral resources. You understand?
Of course, the government is like the father, the parent in the house. All the resources they have, they need to make sure that they take care of it, know how it's being used, and how the children are making use of it, or whether bringing it back. Of course, if they are taking it out, that means export. They have to do what? Pay something for the government. Or if they have to bring from outside, then there should be a way of balancing everything to make sure that the country is not suffering. As our country now today, there are a lot of suffering. And we have a lot of resources, a lot of minerals deposited in this country, and we are not using it very well.
All right, sir. The Minister of Mining said he is aiming at improving the country's GDP by 50%. Do you think this is achievable?
Of course, it's achievable because I believe he must have sit down and work out the modalities as a mathematician. When you have analyzed and then found out that the analysis is there's possibility of achieving that, then you know that it's something possible. Then you can make such a statement. And then work towards how to bring it to pass.
Well, I believe if the government can create atmosphere for small-scale artisanal miners to be registered, that's by crashing the prices for licenses, and this will make it legal for them to be involved, and the government can make more revenue from the licenses, I believe.
The Minister of Mining said that he is aiming at improving the country's GDP by 50%. Do you think this is achievable?
It is very, very achievable. Why I say so? Because across the country, see, we have a lot of mineral resources that are untapped. If the government pour money into that field, I think we open all the mining sites. It will be a big revenue earner for Nigeria.
For them to legalize it, for them to legalize it, I think generate an organization for it, a special organization for it, so that whosoever wants to go into that business should go and register he or herself. Already I know there is on ground, but honestly speaking, I don't think it's functioning, or it's truly functioning the way it's supposed to be, or if you're caught on illegal mining, right, you should be prosecuted.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Keep watching NIPSS Policy TV.
Hello and thanks for joining us. Today on Alumni Chat, we have Professor Shola Adeyonju MNI, who is the Head Public Affairs Department of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. It's good to have you, sir.
It's nice being with you.
Thank you. So, what has been your experience as a participant?
Well, my experience as a participant is a very interesting one. Interesting because mine was a peculiar case, in the sense that I've been working in the National Institutes, and I've been part and parcel of the training of many of the MNIs who have now come back to become directing staff. So it makes it it's supposed to make it easy, but it wasn't exactly like that. So it was a very interesting experience. I had the cooperation of everybody, and some people that have passed through me, I had to pass through them. So it was like a role reversal, so to say. Yeah, but it was interesting.
Thank you. So, how has this experience impacted on your person and your career?
Well, what I discovered is that it is one thing for you to be a trainer. It's another thing for you to also be trained in the same process. And that makes a world of difference to me. It opened my eyes more to acquiring more knowledge, but more importantly, knowing what it feels to pass through the 10 months of training as a member of the National Institute. It's the knowledge is not quantifiable. If you have not gone through it, you just cannot describe it, because it gives you room to also, apart from the group dynamics, it also tells you to know how to cope with all sorts of people, the good, the bad, the ugly, the hardworking, the lazy ones. It makes you also to be able to go through stress and how to manage it.
All right. And what's your take on the narrative that ANI, which is the Association of the Members of the National Institute, is seen as an elitist group?
Well, I think it was just a circumstantial thing. Because when you can have many elitist organizations in the country. I mean, we have many. But tagging Annie as elitist may be due to the fact that, number one, the graduates of MNI are not many. That is one. But I think more importantly, why this is seen as such is that to be together for 10 months, day and night, gives you that level of bond that is permanent. Even though at the point of doing it, you may never know that you have that kind of bond. But by the time you are through, because it's like people that have gone through fire together. When they survive it, they know each time they make reference, they know where they are coming from. So that bond is very tight and it's permanent.
What brought about the circumstance of your coming to be a participant?
Well, you know, one good thing about the senior executive course, particularly when you want to become a member of the National Institute, which MNI means, is that there is no any other way you can get it. It's not, there is no honorary MNI anywhere. And the only way you can get it is to go through the course. And as a trainer before, it doesn't really qualify me to be called MNI. So I had to go through the training. So go through the furnace, feel the impact, know what it means, and then you get your MNI.
What brought about this the NIPSS Policy TV? It's a pet project, or let me say it's a brainchild of the DG. So what brought about you having Policy TV for the National Institute?
Well, you see, the issue of Policy TV is a very interesting one. For so many years, I have been an advocate of openness to what the National Institute is doing. Because after joining the National Institute and looking at the volume of resources, looking at the volume of researches and results that have been conducted over the years, you discover that there is no problem you want to talk about in Nigeria that has not been touched. All any government needs to do is look back and say, give me your recommendations and implementation strategies. And you know, the good thing is that when you do research reports in the National Institute, it goes with it doesn't stop at the level of just recommendation. It adds your implementation strategy. That is, how will you get that recommendation done? Which means that you're already thinking for government, which is the role the National Institute has been mandated to play, to be a think tank. So you're already thinking for government. But at the same time, you discover that government is saddled with a lot of things and sometimes they are distracted. So some of those recommendations may be lost on them. And even some of them sometimes may be practically good, but politically difficult for some governments. So, but what we discovered over the years is that, look, these things, we are a national institute, not just federal institute. National institute means that it covers the whole country. You are supposed to be advising both federal, states, local government, and even the private sector. So, and then we now discover that some of these results don't even reach the stakeholders. That is one. Secondly, is that the argument, particularly for the Director General, is that, look, policies are not discussed in open arena for so long. Even when you have policies being discussed on the television, it's just for some minutes because of other competing interests on television. So that was how we now came to conclusion that, look, let's have a dedicated television station that will be for policy and strategy. And you know, funnily, when the idea was mooted, it was like a child's play. And now we discovered that there is nothing, no television, no specialized television like that in the whole of Africa. So This is making history, as far as I'm concerned. It's one of the things, legacies that we'll leave behind. So where when there was a need, this was created. And this will now give us the opportunity to say, let's focus on policies, both government and public policies, to see how they could be discussed, how people can get more input. When people have more input, they are likely to know where we are coming from and where we are going. And when we do that, some recommendations will be coming out from that. That our research results also will be coming out to people, so that because people feel that there are some problems that researchers have not looked into. Meanwhile, they have looked into it, they have recommended what should be done. So I think this is the purpose that the television is aiming to serve. And good thing is that almost all the people that have heard about this have been giving us serious encouragement. I mean, people have been saying this is an idea whose time has come. And then the best thing is to just make sure we make the best out of it. So that's about the NIPSS policy television.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
We
very
have
much.
been talking with Professor Shola Adeyonju, MNI, who is the head Public Affairs Department of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. Now we get back to the program. Stay with us.
The Nigerian mining industry has picked up since the economic diversification agenda, from oil and gas to agriculture, mining, and the rest of them, which began in the country. While amendments to the 2007 law will not be transformative in terms of attracting investment and generating revenues, they will go a long way in cracking down on illegal mining in the country. The 2021 contributions of the solid minerals sector to Nigeria's GDP stood at 0.63%. The performance was an improvement compared to previous years, where it contributed about 0.45% in 2020 and 0.26% in 2019. Despite this improvement, the contributions of the industry in the nation's or to the nation's economy is still below expectations, considering its humongous potentials. The low output in the industry is due to activities of artisanal operators, like we earlier mentioned. Nigeria is endowed with 44 different mineral types in varying commercial quantities. They are classified as industrial minerals, energy minerals, metallic ore minerals, and construction minerals. These different mineral resources are scattered all over the country and could be found in more than 500 different locations. The way these 44 mineral resources are divinely, strategically scattered all over Nigeria, unlike the liquid resources, simply means that there's hardly any state or local government council in Nigeria that is not endowed with one mineral type or the other. They are testimony of Nigeria's uncommon blessings and endowments given by nature. A sound understanding of how the appropriate harnessing of these resources can catapult Nigeria to an enviable position in the committee of the richest 25 nations on earth can indeed make a brilliant, sincere, passionate, and committed minister like Dele Alake to dream of leveraging on their worth to add 50% to the country's GDP. That's it today on Policy Focus. I am Lydia Odijochi. Thank you for your time. See you next time. Bye-bye.